Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending the Urban Institute's webinar, Expanding Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in Tech Apprenticeships. The interest on this topic has been tremendous, and we're delighted to have so many attendees on this webinar to learn more about apprenticeship and how it can expand DEI efforts in the tech sector. We have a great program for you today. We'll start with a bit of framing about the topic and the project, and then we'll hear from our panelists about their efforts to expand opportunities in tech. Next slide. So first, a bit of housekeeping. The event is being recorded, and the recording will be posted online after the event. The slides and speaker biographies are available online. All participants are muted. Type your questions or comments into the Q&A box at any time. And we'll have a period after the panelists present where we'll answer questions from the Q&A. Next slide. Next, thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Diana Elliott, and I direct Urban Institute's Apprenticeship Expansion and Modernization Fund project, or AEMF, which focuses on expanding apprenticeships in tech occupations. My colleague Daniel Keene is also joining to frame the conversation and introduce and moderate the discussion with our esteemed panelists. For those of you who don't know about the Urban Institute, we're a nonprofit research and policy organization based in Washington, D.C. that elevates evidence in policy conversations and decision-making. And the evidence is very strong that apprenticeships in tech work well. Next slide. So whenever we present to new audiences who might not be as familiar with apprenticeship, we find it's helpful to do a quick overview of what apprenticeship is. Importantly, apprenticeship is distinctive from internships. Internships tend to be short-term, unpaid, and don't often lead to a career on-ramp. In contrast, apprenticeships differ from internships in very important ways. First, apprenticeships allow people to get paid on-the-job training along with classroom learning to earn credentials and certifications. Apprentices generally have structured pay increases associated with the demonstration of competencies, greater responsibility, and greater productivity on the job. Apprentices are typically a full-time employee of the employer. And in the case of registered programs, this can be for a year or more in duration. Apprentices are mentored on the job to employers' expectations. Apprenticeships minimize burdensome student loan debt, and we'll hear a little bit more about that in the course of the discussion. Apprenticeships can be for incumbent workers or for new employees. Next slide. So just a little bit of background on our AEMF project. Urban's AEMF project is a U.S. Department of Labor funded project that started in June of 2019 and continues until June of 2022. Our vision for this project is to expand registered apprenticeship opportunities with employers of tech occupations across various sectors. In this capacity, we engage with employers to raise awareness about registered apprenticeship and to explore its fit for their needs. We provide free technical assistance to develop and register new programs. We provide monetary incentives that offset some of the employer's costs in training and mentoring apprentices. And the goal for our project is to sign over 1,700 new apprentices by the end of June 2022 in tech occupations. And along the way, we'll be working with at least 30 employers and supporting the start of 20 new programs. Next slide. So why did we focus on tech? Well, namely, we saw that the need for new talent in tech was high. The skills were ones that could be learned on the job, and the rewards to apprentices were tremendous. Across tech jobs nationwide, it's not uncommon for job postings to go unfilled. There simply are not enough employees with the right skills to fill these postings. And tech occupations are projected to grow, adding more than 500,000 jobs in the next decade. These are really well-paying jobs with a median wage for IT jobs that's double the national median. Next slide. Meanwhile, computer science classes in the US lack diversity and are not necessarily addressing equity and inclusion in the profession. Furthermore, the demand for seats in computer science classes outstrips the supply of what is offered in those traditional educational institutions. Right now, there are 10 times the number of open computer science jobs as there are those who graduate yearly with a CS degree. So there's tremendous demand for people with computer science skills to fill these jobs, and we just don't have enough formalized training opportunities in the US. Next slide. Tech occupations are incredibly apprenticeable. There's growing dissatisfaction that computer science education in the nation's colleges and universities is not immediately relevant to the work on the job. In other words, there's a lot of on-the-job learning that has to happen for anyone who starts in a computer science job, even if they have a computer science degree. And training has become more and more democratized with various entry points, free or lower cost ones, to help people learn the fundamentals. Even among employers, there's a growing recognition that a 4-year CS degree isn't needed for many IT roles. Next slide. So the evidence really underscores that apprenticeship is a viable solution for hiring in tech. Apprenticeships draw from candidates who don't necessarily have degrees and credentials, but have deep potential. So it's a way for the industry to build the talent itself, to bring in greater diversity, and to create workplaces where new perspectives can foster innovation. So now at this point, I'm pleased to turn over the conversation to my Urban Institute colleague, Daniel Keene.
All right, thank you, Diana, and thanks everyone for joining us for this discussion on expanding diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech apprenticeship. I want to echo Diana's excitement about the interest that you've shown in this topic, and I think we'll all learn a lot from our panelists today. Diversity, equity, and inclusion in apprenticeship has been recognized as a policy priority for decades. In the 1960s and 1970s, legal efforts to combat racial discrimination in apprenticeship programs became a cornerstone of emerging affirmative action and equal employment law and practice. In the 1990s, the Department of Labor began awarding women in apprenticeships in non-traditional occupations grants, or WANTO grants, to combat the enormous gender disparities in apprenticeship that persist to this day. More recently, in 2016, the Department of Labor released updated EEO regulations that prohibit discrimination on the basis of disability, age, sexual orientation, and genetic information. Like many occupations, tech jobs have long-standing gender and racial disparities in employment, retention, and promotion. And these disparities are also reproduced in most tech apprenticeship programs. The data that we have on registered apprenticeships suggests that only about a quarter of tech apprentices are women, which roughly matches women's share of the tech workforce as a whole. Women of color have an even more difficult time accessing apprenticeship opportunities. Inclusive apprenticeship programs ensure that everyone has access to high-quality training and job opportunities, and guarantees that diverse perspectives are brought to bear on tasks and problems in the workplace. Next slide. So to explore strategies for inclusive tech apprenticeships, we've brought together a panel representing several diverse perspectives. We've invited several employers of apprentices, including Nicole Brown, Senior Principal IT Security Consultant at Carter Enterprise Solutions, and Heather Terenzio, CEO and founder of Tectonic. Employers are the backbone of every apprenticeship program because they provide apprentices with a paid on-the-job training experiences and frequently serve as the sponsor of the apprenticeship program itself. We're also joined by Michael Ward Jr., the president and CEO of the Austin Urban Technology Movement, or AUTUM. AUTUM bridges the gap between the Black and Hispanic communities and tech employers through job placement, career development, and network opportunities. Girish Sheshagiri also joins us as an employer of apprentices, But more recently, he's been doing the difficult work of developing and registering new apprenticeship programs with HBCUs in South Carolina. And perhaps most important of all, we're excited to be joined by Sierra Butcher, who is a registered apprentice in a tech apprenticeship program. Sierra has had firsthand experience applying to apprenticeship programs, and she understands what it takes to persevere through the training. In the first half of our conversation, I really want to talk about panelists' experiences with inclusive hiring. How do we get a group of diverse apprentice candidates through the door? Then I want to move into a discussion of how to support apprentices from underrepresented communities during the apprenticeship and through successful completion of the program. So to start off, I'd like to ask each panelist to introduce themselves. We have a big panel today, so to ensure that we have time for a great discussion, I'll ask you to share your name, how your organization is involved with apprenticeship training, and then share why you think it's important to have apprenticeship programs that are diverse and inclusive. So let's start with Nicole Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Brown, and I am the CEO of Carter Enterprise Solutions, and we're located in Hyattsville, Maryland. Our company we have a cybersecurity apprenticeship that is the first cyber-specific apprenticeship in the state of Maryland. And we serve in a dual capacity as a related instruction provider as well as an employer. And we feel diversity is really important in the cybersecurity industry because statistically, we lack diversity as it relates to people of color, women, as well as individuals with disabilities. So we're looking to expand our audience base to reach out to other audiences.
Great, and Sierra?
Hi, how's everyone doing? My name is Sierra Butcher. I just graduated from the expansion Step It Up America program down here in Alpharetta, Georgia, the Atlanta area. And I got my job at Fiserv, which is a fintech company down here in Marietta, Georgia, as a cyber analyst. And I feel like apprenticeship programs are very important because it just shows diversity and inclusion. And someone like me who actually went through the program, I can actually see some representation of someone that actually looks like me when I get into these companies and when I start working in corporate America. So I really think it's important. I have people on my team that actually look like me that I can connect with and that knows some of my experiences. So inclusion is very important. Diversity is very important, and apprenticeship programs for minorities, military people, women is very important. Thank you.
Great. How about Garish?
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me, Dan?
Yep.
Okay. Again, thank you, Diana. Thank you, Daniel, and the Urban Institute. I'm really glad to be here. I'm a member of the board of directors for HP Information Technologies. HP is a Native American and service-disabled, veteran-owned, and a fast-growing company that's originally headquartered in South Carolina. I'll be talking today about the current status of a multi-employer, multi-college university initiative that HP partnered with South Carolina State University and started that about the beginning of this year. And I'd like to recognize Dr. Nikunja Swain, who should be in the attendee list here. He's the chair of the Department of Computer Science and Mathematics at South Carolina State. This initiative is really a give back from our company to the communities where we operate. And we'll talk about it, the details a little bit later. But I do want to share a disclaimer. The opinions expressed are mine and not the company's. And again, thank you, Dan.
Great. Heather?
Thank you for having me here today. My name is Heather Terenzio. I'm founder of Tectonic. Actually recently changed my role from CEO to board chair. But I founded Tectonic 15 years ago, and we were having the same problems everyone else was having with hiring and hiring for diversity. And so about 5 years ago, we decided to be the change we wanted to see in the world. And we started working with lots of different models. We created our own apprenticeship program and started bringing people on board and training people side by side, because that's how everybody learns technology. Everyone learns side by side with a more senior level developer. And we discovered that being an apprenticeship program actually had a federal designation to it, and that there were guidelines and standards. And so we sought to get that kind of designation, and it took us about 18 months, and this is 5 or 6 years ago, but we became the first software development apprenticeship program in the United States. And we've been growing aggressively ever since, but more and more people are realizing that a college degree isn't the only way into a tech profession, and are realizing that people get into this profession through all different kinds of avenues. So we're excited to be proponents of the apprenticeship model and to help keep it growing and help increase its reach throughout the United States.
Great. And Michael?
Perfect. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thank you so much for joining in today, and shout out to the Urban Institute for reaching out and inviting the Austin Urban Technology Movement to the conversation. So my name is Michael Ward Jr. I am the president and CEO of Austin Urban Technology Movement, and we got connected through apprenticeships because we focus on workforce development inside the tech space. I have a background in working at Oracle, doing back-end and front-end technology, and during that time, we realized that there was a lack of representation of the Black and Hispanic communities inside the tech industry across the board. So in 2018, I left corporate America and actually led and started Austin Urban Technology Movement to really have the deepest impact we possibly can inside the tech space by increasing representation of the Black and Hispanic communities. And one way we can do that is through apprenticeships. The reason why apprenticeships is important is because it removes some of the barriers that have been created that makes it very difficult for people to become self-sustaining. Technology is one pathway. I definitely support and push technology. There's other opportunities as well, but there's a lot of barriers that make it difficult for those that are low income, from those that are underrepresented, those that are unserved, just to get started and get their foot in the door. And we realize that through apprenticeships, this is one way where individuals most they need can become self-sustaining, but at the same time, now employers get to benefit by making it very easy for them to find talent, employ people, and really express what is needed from that employer's perspective for that individual person. Because we know every company has their differences, has their tweaks, and things that are very special to them. Well, through an apprenticeship, you really get to start from the ground up and rebuild your entire workforce, your entire pipeline. I'm so very excited for the conversation. Looking forward to dive in. So back to you, Daniel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We're very happy to have all of you here with us today. So before jumping into your experiences with solutions, I want to frame this conversation by digging into the barriers and the structural discrimination that women and people of color face in accessing tech apprenticeships. So what do you think are some of the barriers that women and people of color face in accessing these opportunities?
Hi, Dan. This is Gary. I think one of the barriers, in my opinion, is, and we just talked about the fact that not every job requires a 4-year degree and so on. But in fact, what has happened, I think, is particularly from a recruiting employer's perspective, when we go recruiting in colleges and universities like we typically do, we find that the Blacks, the Hispanic population, are disproportionately receiving a smaller percentage of the 2-year and 4-year degrees that are offered. So this is sort of, in my opinion, resulted in a separate and unequal outcome of higher education in this country. And the pandemic put a spotlight on it. On a percentage basis, the minority community lost more jobs during the pandemic, and these were low-paying, low-skill jobs to begin with. So that's one of the reasons why we're partnering with the historically Black colleges and universities because the minority community is already there, and we need to do is to do the apprenticeship to give them the competencies and skills that they need. And so if among the people that are attending, if you're another historically Black college, university, or an employer wanting to work with the HBCUs for degree apprenticeships, please reach out to any of us, myself, Dr. Nikunja Swain, or Dr. Diana Elliott.
Great. Michael, were you about to answer?
Yes, I'll chime in there, and everything that says, I definitely do agree with that. I would frame it that there's a disconnect between our education system and the actual workforce, right? Or what's needed inside from an employer perspective. I believe that Heather touched on it, that in order to really accommodate and understand technology, you need someone like holding your hand along the way. And we need to accommodate for how much the industry itself is changing. Technology is one of the newest endeavors as a society. So because of that, we need to understand that throughout the generations, it just got faster and faster, right? It got more complex, more complicated. So thus we need to create a stronger foundation. So when I think through some of the barriers that are impacting, yes, the Black and Hispanic communities, but just overall really our community, is that the actual education as being taught doesn't add up to what is needed for the job. We need to rethink and actually start training individuals transferable skills. So now with these skills, they're able to do the job and show that through repetition. So we have to expose people to these opportunities, let them get excited about wanting to even work inside the tech industry. And in order for us to do that, unfortunately, we can't rely on the education system because it's outdated. It doesn't match how we are processing and dissecting information today. We need to train individuals. We need to open them up to different career opportunities, show them that going to a four-year school is one option, but there are certifications, there are apprenticeships, right? There's other ways for you to generate the knowledge and the skill sets that you need in order to move on to the next step. And lastly is just support, right? The individuals that we're looking to train, whether it's women, whether it's the Black community, the Hispanic community, they need more support given the systematic racism that has been going on in our society. So you can't expect someone who doesn't have internet access, who doesn't have a computer, who's never understood it and really spoke the tech language to be able to be on the same level as someone who's had that their whole life. So we got to come from this issue from a real mindset of understanding that individual person, and that that individual person is going to be different based on where they're living, right? Based on what their social capital is. That's how we're going to be able to create real solutions that match, which is exposure, mentorship, guidance, etc.
Daniel, this is Nicole. I'd like to comment. Being a minority, also a female being in cybersecurity, I can honestly say I represent a small percentage of the workforce, very small. And I feel that some of the barriers that have been touched on, apprenticeship is very important because it does allow individuals another option to college. Now, I'm a huge advocate of college. I'm a HBCU graduate and from Norfolk State University. And I'm really, the barriers exist because it's hard for certain individuals to gain access to education. We want everyone to feel that they have the opportunity to attend college, but the fact is that college is extremely expensive now. And you can go to school and it can cost a family $25,000 in just a period of 3 to 4 months. And a lot of families just cannot simply support $100,000 bill every year. And it can really cause a shortfall in the industry because many minorities are unable to reach those goals. Even with scholarships, you can get a scholarship and the chances are it's not going to cover the entire bill. So apprenticeship is just an opportunity to present those same educational trainings and make it available to individuals who may not necessarily have the pathway to college, but have the desire to be successful. So that's why our program, we are trying to gear it towards the out of school youth, those individuals who really have the desire to be successful and the desire to explore new career pathways, but don't have the finances to actually attend college.
Great. Sierra, I'm curious, how did you find out about your apprenticeship, and what was the biggest motivator for you to decide to apply to that apprenticeship program?
Honestly, I found out about the apprenticeship program through my friend. I never even knew what an apprenticeship program was. After going to college, I didn't know anything. And she was just telling me about it, and it just sounds like it just sounded like foreign to me, because I'm like, okay, so you get to go to this program for 4 months. They're going to train you and tell you everything that you need to know, and they're going to give you a job. Like, I didn't even need to go to school. I could have did this back when I was 18 years old, and all of the energy, money, and staying up late nights in school. I could have been doing this. I could have been in this career path 10 years ago, when I graduated high school. So it just seemed like it was very foreign to me. Um, just like Mr. Michael and Miss Nicole said, growing up in the inner city, I'm from Wilmington, Delaware. So growing up in the inner city is just the same stuff that you see going on. High crime, no programs, nobody advocating for us, no money from, the city and state local governments going towards the inner city. And it's just like, we don't have those resources. We don't have that money. We don't have people that's like, hey, put the money over here. Hey, let's start this program, for people that are living below the poverty level, to pull them through the pipeline. So maybe when they do get the time, when it's time for them to graduate high school, they can have those options versus just saying, go to college, go to college, go to college. Okay, what school am I supposed to go to? How do I get financial aid? I didn't know how to fill out a FAFSA when it was time for me to go to college. Like, I had no help, no guidance at all. No guidance at all. My mom never went to college, and my dad never went to college. So I never had any guidance. So just it was just a blessing to for my friend to actually tell me about this program after already going to school, and I couldn't find a job. It was in the middle of the pandemic. I just graduated in May. Middle of pandemic, millions of Americans are losing their jobs. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I said, hey, let me just fill it out. I'll just start filling out a million jobs. Didn't even know what jobs I was filling out for. I just said, I need a job. And then she told me about she told me about the apprenticeship program. I applied for that. And then someone from the actual company called me and explained to me more, because it was new to her. She didn't even know completely what it was about. And then as I got into the program and start learning and just start seeing the endless opportunities that apprenticeships have, that's when I was able to actually, finish the program, meet these people, become successful, and actually, try to represent the company, like in panel discussions like this. This is actually my second panel discussion. So actually just going through that experience really, really helped me a lot.
Great, thank you. And you keep mentioning referring to the apprenticeship as a job, which highlights the point that Diana made earlier. And I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between apprenticeship and internship. It is a job to support you. Heather, some people worry that there's a trade-off between inclusivity and high standards for hiring in an apprenticeship. But Tectonic proves that that's not true. You advertise to your customers that your apprenticeship program is highly selective, with an acceptance rate that is apparently below 10%. So how is your commitment to diversity and inclusion integrated into this very rigorous vetting process?
Yeah, it's surprising and was interesting to us as well. When we initially started, we were focusing on women and minority candidates. And then we actually had a young man show up who was white, but he had come up through the foster care system. And so we wanted to give him a chance as well. And so our definition of diversity kept changing over and over again. And it's a constant discussion that we're having of what does it even mean to be a diverse candidate? And so we went away from just trying to pick people based on diversity statistics and really just take the best of the best. And what wound up happening is that the best of the best turns out that it's a very diverse group of folks. And we pay people to be in our program. We give them counselors along the way. There's a career coach as well to help them not only with us, but as they transition from us into one of our clients. And it turns out when you take all the barriers to entry away, the diversity just starts showing up. And so we don't do any selection for diversity whatsoever. And I'm in Boulder, Colorado, which is not an incredibly diverse town to begin with, but our diversity numbers are 3 and 4 times industry average for women, minorities, and veterans. And so you can keep the bar really high and you can have a really diverse class of folks as well. So we're really proud of that. We love our numbers. And I also feel like diversity begets diversity. So actually exactly what Sierra was saying, most of our class is here because they heard about us through a friend. And so when diverse candidates tell their friends that this is a program, we actually wind up getting more and more candidates who are great for our program. And so I'd say with every class we have, at least a third of the folks in there were referred by a friend of theirs.
That's great. Thank you. So Michael, Autumn makes a point of reaching out to Black and Hispanic students in high school and college to bridge them into tech jobs and apprenticeships. How and where do you recruit for these programs, and what's been successful so far for Autumn in Autumn's experience?
Sure. So I'll answer the latter question first. As far as what's been successful, being consistent. I think a lot of times organizations or entities, they push out different initiatives and they do it maybe once a year and they think, okay, I'm done. And it's like, no, in order for you to actually address this problem, you have to create a consistent routine with this, right? Consistent schedule that fits so you can have a build-up over time. So the number one thing that has been, our success has been consistent working with organizations, working with institutions, working with the employers, and having the same message that this is a problem that we're looking to address. And in order for us to address that, it's not going to happen within a year. It's not going to happen in 5 years. 10 years, but we need to work every single day until we reach that goal. So as far as how we're engaging with students, we do it several different ways. We do several different events and programming. Right now, we're actually in the middle of 12 days of autumn, and it's 12 days of events promoting digital equity, promoting upskilling and reskilling the Black and Hispanic community. So we have multiple opportunities for those that are part of Autumn, whether you're just part of the Autumn community, you're getting trained by Autumn, to have a touch point to engage with those that look just like you, that are going or moving through their tech journey, right? So outside of our events, we work with institutions. So we're working with Houston-Tillotson University, which is a HBCU down here in Austin. So Garesh, like I said, I want to talk to you about some things. So we have Houston-Tillotson University. We also work with Austin Community College. We work with St. Edward's. So institutions is definitely our number one partnership when it comes down to engaging with students. Outside of internships, or outside of institutions, I should say, we also work with organizations. We work with American Youth Works. We focus on at-risk youth and those that have been through the foster care system. We work with Building Promise USA that focus on those that have been criminalized. So in order for us to have the impact that we want to have, Autumn can't do it by themselves, of course not. Right? We have to work with institutions that are working with the students that we're serving. We work with organizations that are working with the adults that we're working with. We're working with those individuals in the same pockets that we're moving in so we can collaborate and have a deeper impact. But in order for us to do that, we have to be consistent. We're always preaching and talking about we have to create a relationship and build on everything that we do until we actually address the goal. So here in Austin, we have a master workforce plan to train 10,000 individuals out of poverty. Great. Once we're 10,000, let's do 20,000, right? Let's do 30,000. Let's continue to build moving forward.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of partnerships with HBCUs that have come up. So Garish, you're currently working with a coalition of HBCUs to develop registered apprenticeships that will result in a 4-year degree. Why do you think that these students that you'll encounter will be attracted to an apprenticeship, which requires extra effort and extra work, rather than a standard bachelor's degree program.
Dan, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. That's a good question. And but let me just begin with a caveat. There is a little bit in what we're trying to do. There's a little bit of build it and they will come. But I'll also explain to you why I think that this kind of an approach would be popular. But the second caveat is, yes, the degree apprenticeships are not for everyone. And so what we need to do, like in our case, I think the colleges themselves, HBCUs, promoting the benefits of apprenticeships to those students that are enrolled in their computer science or cybersecurity degree programs. And what needs to be emphasized is primarily the learn and earn aspects of apprenticeship. And here, let me just mention to you that in the minority community, many of the youth attending colleges are also the breadwinners in their family. And I think that it would be attractive to them to give up their make jobs in favor of a paid apprenticeship that's a guaranteed pathway to a well-paying job. And this is exactly what happened in a project that we did in Illinois. And we partnered with a community college there. And of the students that were enrolled in an associate degree in computer science there, we asked them, with the college help, how many would be interested in apprenticeship. And a percentage of them said yes, and it was between 30 to 50%. Then we did an aptitude test of those people that said that they would like to get an apprenticeship, and with a cutoff score, and that's the group that we employers actually recruited and hired, so on. So I believe that working cooperatively, both employers and colleges, and keeping this idea of a learn and earn dual model and a guaranteed job at the benefit will bring that. The one other thing that I do want to mention is that the apprenticeships are about acquiring competencies and not just a degree. So again, employers should take the lead by assigning the mentors for on-the-job learning part of the apprenticeship program, focusing on not just the hard technical skills, but also some of the soft skills. So I think with that kind of approaches, we'll start making some inroads into getting more of the minority community, particularly the African American community and the Hispanic community, to come into apprenticeships.
Great, thank you. Now, Nicole, in your cybersecurity apprenticeship program, you identify out-of-school youth as an important target population for you. And we know that that can be a difficult population to reach and to bring into any program. So what have your experiences been in successfully bringing out-of-school youth into apprenticeship?
I must agree with Michael. Consistency is the key to any successful program. We are looking to have an incoming class of approximately 30 students here in the first quarter of 2021. And our outreach program has really been about building those relationships that Michael spoke about. We are located in Prince George's County, Maryland, and we've been working closely with the Prince George's County Employment Center and Prince George's County Employee and the Economic Development Center as it relates to resources. They've been great. We also have relationships reaching out to the youth programs and the high schools within our community. And honestly, a lot of the students and people who are interested have been finding out about the program through the apprenticeship portal for the state of Maryland. We receive a lot of reach out from that particular resource. So we're really excited. We've been making some great strides with our consistency as it relates to funding, as it relates to participation, and we're engaging more employers as the program grows. So we're really excited and we're getting some really positive feedback.
Great. All right, so we've talked a lot about outreach and recruitment and getting apprentices through the door. But once they've started in a program, apprenticeship is difficult. You're going to class, you're working a job, you're learning on a job, and some of these programs can be very long. So it takes a lot of effort to get through a program, even after you've walked through the door. So now I want to move into some questions about once we've got this diverse pool of tech apprentices? How do you sustain them through the apprenticeship, through to completion, and through to jobs afterwards? So just want to start again with a question for the group. Women often encounter a male-dominated workplace culture in tech companies if it's part of the tech industry, so much so that many leave. So for the employers, especially on the panel, but for anybody, have you made any changes to the workplace to make it more supportive for women and people of color to thrive and advance once they're in the apprenticeship?
I can start with that. So I think the nicest thing about working with Tectonic is that when a woman walks into our organization, she sees a lot of women. And a lot of women at every level of the organization. So everywhere from CEO to senior leadership to the executive team, on every level and everywhere. And so I think what's really important, and I think someone else, maybe Nicole mentioned this earlier, is that you could see yourself in other people. And you could see this is a place I can succeed because I see other people who look like me moving up through this organization. And, you know, there's all kinds of classes and sensitivity training and all that, but nothing beats seeing other people who look like you succeeding and moving up through the organization. So I'm proponents of all those other things. And we have, you know, mothers' rooms and, you know, flexible work schedules and all that kind of stuff. But really nothing beats actually seeing that you're walking the walk and that there's other people there who are succeeding in your organization.
Daniel, this is Nicole. I can honestly say I can actually relate to Sierra's story as she introduced herself earlier on, because honestly, I'm a product of similar background as Sierra. So what I have done with the program in general, because I have faced many hurdles within my career, I never gave up. Really, it just made me want to be more aggressive in my approach as it relates to certifications, training, just to make sure that I could always compete. I think that's the biggest thing. It's hard as an African-American female or minority female for us to compete. A lot of times people in corporate America, in the conference room, your opinion may not be as weighted as someone else's opinion. And that's something that I have really, really struggled with throughout my career. So I tend to make sure I'm always prepared, making sure that, you know, I really, if my counterpart read the article once, I had to read it 3 or 4 times just to really make sure that I was always ready for any questions and just be able to represent myself with the fullest potential. So what I did with the program, I'm not highly diverse in workforce development. I'm a cybersecurity professional and instructor. But what I did, I took all my experiences in the classroom, at work, and I actually incorporated it into the program. So we are really looking to implement things that help not just women, but those classes that are challenged within the cybersecurity industry as a whole. So women, and we are launching something that's really new. And I see in the chat that we do have individuals that may be members of the deaf and hard of hearing community. That is a challenge that we are taking on in 2021. We have a great partnership in place. So we are venturing into other arenas that a lot of people have shied away from. So look out for our ASL program coming up in 2021.
Great. So Nicole, you mentioned partnerships to support apprenticeship. I'm wondering, Michael, how do you partner with employers, maybe even not employers of apprentices, to support apprentices as they go through the program once they've been recruited?
Oh, for sure. That is definitely a part of the conversations that we're having right now. There's several entities that we're talking with right now about either launching their apprenticeship for their first time. You know, they probably never had one before, or they have one at headquarters, but it's not here in Austin, right? So it's like, okay, well, how can we do what we're doing here at headquarters over here in Austin? What I would say is that, conversations like this is very important, because a lot of times when we're talking to employers, it's a lot of educating about what exactly an apprenticeship is, right? They're thinking, some of them, not all of them, are thinking individuals are going through a 4-year degree and then moving into an apprenticeship program. And it's like, no, an apprenticeship program is a different pathway than going the 4-year degree route. So we understand just what are the benefits of an apprenticeship. It's on-the-job training plus online curriculum, mentorship component. So really letting people understand what is actually needed first. What does that investment look like? Okay, great. Now, how can we connect that with our headcount and what headcount is going to be for 2021? What I would say is that, we're the earliest ones here as far as launching an apprenticeship. We're in conversations right now with the labor department in order to do that. So that's the phase that we are. But as we think through, okay, how we're going to be launching and turning all of our boot camps into apprenticeships, right? That's ultimately the goal, is that we want everybody to be able to be employed and lead to a full-time job. Great. Let's just transfer all of our boot camps that we currently have into apprenticeships by working with those partners that make the most sense. So now we're having those strategic conversations about how invested are you really, right? What does your level of engagement look like? Do you fully understand that this is what's needed for the individuals that we're targeting to go through these apprenticeship programs? Some of them are going to need assistance with internet access to devices. We're going to make sure that they have a mentor, that they are guided through this process. So really having those expectations. But like Nicole, it's all about partnerships, having tech companies that are fully supported and looking to dive deep, not just a surface level partnership, because we do, those are good for an extent, but we're looking for those that are thinking about investing, right? So let's tap into your recruiting budget. Let's tap into your diversity, equity, inclusion budget. Let's tap into your corporate social responsibility budget. Great. What about the rainy day budget? Can we tap into that too? And let's start investing and to move forward.
Daniel, can I kind of piggyback on Michael's comment?
Of course. Yep.
So Michael, what has been some of your approaches? Because in the delivery to the community, to other employers, because as I stated, we wear a dual hat here within my program. Many employers with technology, especially cyber, being a new type of apprenticeship, just starting to be accepted in the industry, it's really been hard to get employers to understand the benefits of the program and to really get them to participate. So what we've been needing funding to foot the bill, the initial bill of the concept to get employers buy-in. So what are some of the techniques that you may have been successful in engaging employers from that perspective?
For sure. The first thing that I was is reach out to the city government that's there, because there should be either some city or even state funding that supports skills development through different organizations. So depending on their size, that's the first thing that I would say, is that the employers can go after this. Is in some, I don't know for all of them, but employers can reach out to those funding opportunities to get those funds to pay you personally. So instead of you having foot the bill, the employers can actually get the funds and work with you to some type of MOU agreement. And that's been one way that we've had those conversations, by saying, hey, we understand you haven't done this before. So instead of trying to play the back and forth game about you understanding the value, great, let me show you where you could go and get money and then leverage that money to support our causes. That's one. The second thing is connecting where their headcount is going. So here in Austin, we go through the Austin Chamber, we look at the jobs report and showing where are the top 25 companies that are producing the jobs. Great. Out of those 25 companies, how many of those jobs actually match the apprenticeships that we have? So for you, if you're looking for cybersecurity, is great. Target all those cybersecurities and saying, hey, you have 2, 3, 5, 10, whatever job amount of postings they have on their board. And you're saying, fine, out of all those job recs, let's do one apprentice. Right. And let's just start with the one apprentice, because now what you're doing, you're making it very easy for that employer, and they don't have to think through the heavy lifting of a full head count and try to plan, a year or 2 years out, because the apprenticeship is going to take some time. So I would recommend starting with one. And then the last thing that I will say is tell them to look at their own books, right? How much are they currently investing in for recruiting? How much do they constantly pay right now for any other services that focus around talent management or talent acquisition that isn't producing the outcome that they need? And I know they have a whole bunch. I mean, we know issue is today, right? So it's not like they can find, X amount of dollars to start with one program. And the moment they start with one program, they'll see the benefits of it and you'll be able to move it in that out. So definitely reach out to external funding so you don't have to foot the bill. Start off with the one apprentice just with the employers, and then let them know, hey, you're already spending this amount in these other areas. Let's just move some of that funding over to this apprenticeship program so we can get started.
Great. So this conversation about what employers need to get started in apprenticeship is important, of course, because you can't have an apprenticeship program without an employer. We also often think about the costs of an apprenticeship program. But I'm curious, Heather and Garish, you've served as sponsors of registered apprenticeship programs. And so there are also benefits of having apprentices as workers. So what are the most critical contributions that a diverse group specifically of apprentices make in the workplace, having a diverse group of apprentices? And how can employers most effectively support their success?
Heather, you want me to go?
Sure.
Okay, all right, thank you. Dan, first of all, before I answer your question, Dan, I do want to recognize both Sierra and Nicole for a very, very compelling personal experience that they related, and I'm convinced that going forward, if we have more people like Nicole and Sierra that actually talk to that community, and they're going to be more believable, then I think more young people would come into apprentices from the minority community if they do that. So getting back to your question, I tell you, this is from personal experience. We're in the software development business, and software development is done with teams. And so I've managed over 100 software development project teams. And I can tell you that the teams that were more diverse consistently outperformed those teams that were not. And our customers actually received results, both for cost, schedule, and quality and things like that, much better by orders of magnitude from diverse teams as opposed to that. So I think, and employers, I think we need to recognize the business value of diversity, in that it will actually contribute to our bottom line by the performance of these diverse teams. The other thing I think we employers can do is we can start by setting examples from the boardroom itself in terms of for equal opportunity in recruiting and pay and promotion and so on. And I think employers should also take affirmative actions to address racism, xenophobia, homophobia, and all the other biases in the workplace. There's absolutely no place for those in the workplace. Then adding value to the customers through racism and things of that nature, and then start paying attention to the results that you're getting from your diverse teams, and you would in fact run your whole company based on having a diverse workforce.
Thank you. Yeah, and to add on to that, we are very clear that we are not a charity. We are a for-profit business, and we know that having more diversity in your company means that you will be a more profitable company. And most people have heard the story about the Apple Watch. When the Apple Watch first came out, it was actually a failure because it didn't work on darker skin and it didn't work on tattoos. And that's because nobody who was testing that technology had dark skin and nobody had tattoos. And so they actually had to recall and change the software in there to make the change to the Apple Watch. And we have clients, from all different kinds of backgrounds, and they want to build products that cater to all different kinds of people. And if you're building products just with white men, there's a good chance that your product's only going to appeal to white men. We have a client who's actually building a robot for the home, and they know that women make most of the buying decisions for the home. And so they came to us saying, we specifically want female engineers on this project so that they have an input into this robot before we start trying to sell it, because we don't want to get 2 years down a development cycle and then find out that women want nothing to do with this robot that we're building. And so they were really intentional about making sure that they had a team that we helped them build that had people from all different kinds of backgrounds, all different kinds of skin colors, and would have input into this product from day one. And I think more and more companies are starting to recognize that You can't just wait till the end of a development cycle, which sometimes takes years, to make sure that it's going to appeal to everybody. And so, like I said, we're firmly not a charity. You know, we don't want you to use us because you feel bad or you feel guilty about your diversity numbers. We want you to work with us because it's the right business decision for your company.
Great, thank you. So Sierra, I'm curious, you've successfully moved through your apprenticeship since the late spring, and what I have to imagine is one of the most difficult times to start an apprenticeship in a long time. And you've been successful and working hard. What kind of supports in the apprenticeship program, or what factors in the apprenticeship program have been most important for your success? I don't know if it looks like you might be frozen, so you might have dropped off. Sierra? Okay. Michael, just continuing this conversation about employers, Autumn partners with local employers to grow diverse apprenticeships in Austin. What might keep employers from using apprenticeship as a training strategy? What are some of the concerns or objections that you hear?
Sure, definitely. I mean, I think everything that Heather and Girish said, but the opposite, right? That they don't believe that diversity is actually going to be an impact to them. They're really thinking more so the upfront cost about the apprenticeship versus the return on the investment. And I think that right there's just a different focus that they need to have when they're thinking about apprenticeships. What I would say is that this is a generalized statement, but they're stuck in status quo. They're so used to the way we've been recruiting, the way we've been hiring, the way we've been doing it for so long. However, at that time, we weren't the country, or the groups of individuals that we are today, right? So now we're more diverse. Now we have more generations. Now we have different understandings. Just the way we process information is different than what it was 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? So in order for us to do that, we really need to think about what is it that we need to do differently to accommodate the changing times. And if you're still stuck around status quo, I mean, COVID-19 hit us hard. And COVID-19 has showed that, we actually have not developed our community entirely. We have not provided enough options for everyone to be successful. So when something like this happens, the economy, the country doesn't have to shut down, right? We're able to still move, even if we have to social distance or leverage technology or go behind a virtual screen, we could still do that by moving forward. So I think a lot of the barriers is more so on the employer side, not understanding the landscape and not being able to shift to accommodate the pivot that we need to make right now. So if you're thinking about increasing your market share, if you're thinking about accommodating your employees and becoming an employer of choice. Well, in order for you to do that, you have to understand that the generations that were in the workforce are different now, and the way that we are engaging and working is different. So you have to be innovative as an employer to really do things differently, because not everyone is focused just on salary, right? There's different reasons why someone is now working for a company, and in order for you to do that, to break down those barriers and really think about being innovative that is touching the individual people you're looking to work with.
Great, thank you. We are getting a lot of great questions in, so I'm going to extend the audience Q&A because we want that input. But before I do, it looks like Sierra is back online. So I wanted to ask you, you are hard at work in an apprenticeship program right now, in a really difficult time to be in an apprenticeship program. And so I'm curious, what are the most important supports that are keeping you going and ensuring that you're successful?
Well, we have a life coach. I believe someone said something about having a life coach. I think it was Miss Nicole. So we have a life coach that we meet with every single day before we even get into the technical aspect of the training. So every morning from 8 to 9, we're meeting with our life coach. We're talking about the soft skills, because a lot of us push the technical skills, the hard skills. You need to know this program, you need to know that program. But what about the soft skills? What about teamwork? What about leadership? What about communication and learning how to talk to people and work with different types of people, and a woman might think different than a man. Someone who grew up in the suburbs might think different than someone who grew up in the inner city. So the soft skills, they hold just as much weight as the technical skills, because you can teach technical, but just making sure we are all on the right page about those soft skills. So that's very important. And also group work. So we do a lot of group work and individual work. I was one of the people that came into the program. I didn't know anything about technology. Computers intimidated me. I never really wanted to pick up a computer other than my phone. So, just me making the type of person I am, I just threw myself into the apprenticeship program because I wanted to try something new. So just them actually making us feel comfortable and giving me a chance, that's just a resource in itself, because they could have easily said, oh, she don't know anything about computers, let's just go and give our slot to someone else. So just giving us a chance to actually prove ourselves. I was the only woman in the class, only African American woman in the class. So it's like, I already felt like I didn't really belong there, but them actually giving me a chance, us doing our group work, and them being there, locking arms with us every step of the way until graduation. Even after graduation, we're still doing weekly meetings. Is there anything that you need from me? Even though I am working in my with my company right now, they're still checking on me. They're still, wanting us to be a part of, conversations like this, weekly meetings. They it's just a support system. It takes a village, so just having that support system, having those people just contact me and let me know that, Sierra, we're still here for you, anything you need, all the way down to every Friday they're reminding us to make sure y'all submitting your time. Just that support system is very, very important, especially for somebody like me who's actually new to technology. And when I came into this, I had no clue what was going on. So I felt very comfortable actually moving through to completion and after completion of the program, because of the warm embrace and support that the program and the apprenticeship has.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So as I said, I'm going to move to some audience questions because we've got so many good ones. You can still submit them in the question and answer box. So the first one, a couple questions are for Heather. The audience is curious how you define the best of the best when we were talking about your hiring. What set of standards qualify someone as the best? And then you also mentioned removing barriers to entry, and that once you remove those barriers, the best of the best ended up being a very diverse group. So they're curious, what is the best of the best and what barriers of entry you ended up removing?
Thank you. Great questions. So software career, I'm sure Sierra can tell you it's hard, right? We need people in this industry who are willing to work, who have grit, determination, ambition, and that's what we're screening for. We're not looking for someone who knows JavaScript or PHP or anything. We're looking for folks with grit and determination. And so we have, it's an 11-step process for getting through our interview process. And it's even just, we give you like 3 pages of instructions to put up a website. And all we ask is that you go line by line by line, do exactly what it says, and you get a website up and running. And so it's all these challenges that just show us that you really want this to be your career. And a lot of people get into software because they hear it's a high-paying career, but you have to be able to do this 8 hours a day, every single day. And so you can't just get into it because you'll make a lot of money. You have to get into it because you actually like it. And so the challenges that we put in front of you are really designed to even tell you what software is, to give you work to do to get through it, and make sure that you really want to be here. So in addition to these challenges, there's in-person interviews. There's a fit score that we have, which means that we actually measure you against all the folks that we've had in our program that have made it successful, and make sure that your personality type, your collaboration, all those kinds of attributes, a lot of the soft skills kind of stuff, maybe you don't know about teamwork or working in an office and that kind of stuff, but we just want to see that you're willing to learn it and that you're open to it. And that's what all these tests that we give you are designed to do. And I shouldn't say tests, they're challenges, but it's almost like a bunch of 2-foot hurdles to make sure that this is what you want to do. Because think about it, we pay you to be here. And so there's not a lot of programs out there that actually pay you to be in our organization. So we want to make sure that you really want to be here and you're here for all the right reasons. So that's why we put, and you'd be surprised, we start with 500 applications. We ask them to read through a 2-page document and to put up a web page, and we lose 400 of them just through that because they don't want to go through the trouble of reading through 2 pages and then doing some work. So it actually says a lot about who you are as a person, just getting through these different kinds of challenges. And then can you tell me again what the second question was?
So then the second question was that you said that you removed barriers, and once you removed barriers, you found that the best qualified were a diverse group of apprentices. So what kind of barriers have you removed?
Well, if you think about, if you can't go to college and you want to get into a software career, the next logical step is a boot camp. In a boot camp, you have to be able to take 6 months off and pay sometimes $20,000 in order to get through that, which means you can't have a job. You got to work on this. So that alone takes out a huge portion of the population, because who can afford to take 6 months off, pay $20,000 and not have a job on the side? So what we have done is we actually pay you, and it's a livable wage. So you're not getting rich in the apprenticeship program, but you can pay the bills and pay the rent. And that's the biggest hurdle to most people getting into this. And then, like Sierra was talking about, we have coaches, we have tutors, we have all kinds of people supporting you to help you get through this program. So, and even we work really closely with our workforce development centers, so that if you're having childcare issues or transportation issues or anything like that, we will work with them really closely. And they've been a great partner, all of the workforce centers in Colorado, and now we're in Nebraska and Omaha as well, have been great partners to make sure that if anything does come up, that we can help you get through that. And I will say, even once you get into our class, we take 20 people per class. 18 usually make it all the way through. And what's really interesting to us is that it's not technical reasons why people drop out. It's because life gets in the way, they can't get to us, childcare falls through, the family system falls apart, something like that is what prevents people from actually getting into this career. So we make sure we do everything we can so that life doesn't get in the way of your career, and that we can help support you through this. So
Great.
That's what we mean by barriers.
Great, thank you. We received several questions about inclusive apprenticeships for people with disabilities, which hasn't come up in a lot of detail. So I was wondering, especially if any of the employers can speak to apprentices with disabilities and supporting them. And I think Nicole mentioned it, and I think you're leaning forward to raise it. So why don't you start, Nicole?
Yes, Daniel. We are really excited. We've been working on this portion of our program since April, honestly, since the pandemic. And we had started having the discussions, but we realized in April the need for reaching out to those communities and individuals with disabilities. And I see within the chat, there are comments about accessibility for deaf and hard of hearing. And that is a diverse group of individuals who honestly are ignored almost, in a sense, because you really don't hear people talking about the audience. You really don't see webinars, classes. There are very, very limited resources for the deaf and hard of hearing community. So I've been working with one of our partners. They're called AIM, and we have been working to come up with resources and support, and also classes for individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. And we just really hope to introduce a new career path, because we just did some research, and honestly, based on the Department of Department of Labor, my apologies, it's less than 3% of individuals with disabilities in the cyber industry. So we are really looking forward to expanding into those areas and giving them a new career path and an opportunity. But I'm not deaf and hard of hearing myself. I just realized that it was a population that did not have this type of resource.
Great, thank you. Are any of the other employers on the panel, do you have experience with apprentices with disabilities and how you support them?
Our actually mainly through our veteran program, we have a lot of PTSD folks. So that's kind of the extent of it. We've looked actually into expanding into other disabilities, and we're kind of actively working on that right now. But I agree with Nicole, it's a really underrepresented, it's not given enough attention, and these are folks who would be great in software development careers as well.
Great, thank you. Another community that hasn't come up in the conversation so far are returning citizens and others with contact with the justice system. And they have challenges obtaining employment in general, and especially in some of these tech careers where security clearances might be important. There might be important barriers to overcome. So I'm curious if anybody on the panel has experience with apprenticeships and returning citizens.
Daniel, I know for myself in Prince George's County, I sit on an advisory board where we are working with a pool of IT companies and employers, and the topic of discussion has been returning citizens. And that is an area that employers within Prince George's County, we are looking to start engaging more frequently, because a lot of those industries that are more favorable from returning citizens can be construction, you know, a lot of the labor communities, but we really want to really start giving individuals who are interested in IT, because every job does not require a security clearance. So that is a discussion we are currently having in Prince George's County, and we are looking to be more active and engaging in IT careers as it relates to that particular audience.
And I can just add that the way our business model works is that we have apprentices who work on our teams, and our clients can hire in those apprentices after 6 to 9 months of working on their teams. Now, the problem with us, we have had several justice involved folks in our apprenticeship program, but when they migrate from us into one of our clients, if they have background checks and different kinds of standards than we do, then things get tripped up there because their career kind of stops with us and they can't move on. So our goal, though, is to find a good mix of employers who will accept people with all different kinds of backgrounds. So we've been trying, but it is a difficult, it's not as straightforward as just hiring folks with different kinds of backgrounds. It's more challenging when they get out into the bigger job force.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that that we're having similar conversations on our side, predominantly with those companies that are already hiring, that already do some type of fair chance hiring. So targeting them, saying, great, you're already banning the box and not having a felony be something that strikes or remove individuals from applicants. So we're having those conversations with those companies to actually transition to focus more so on the tech related roles, right? Because a lot of the opportunities that they have is within their company, but it's not geared in the direction that we believe is most beneficial to the individuals going through that program. So fair chance hiring individuals are definitely a good starting point. But then secondly, through the workforce development office that we have here, through other organizations that focus under population. It's about working with them and through the organizations that already support them, right? So targeting them, and we're having those conversations with those individuals that do want to start doing, or hiring or working with the reentry population. They're just not exactly sure what that looks like. So we're guiding them through that program, through that process, so we can really get some things going on.
Great, thank you. Girish and Michael had both talked a lot about how employers think about apprenticeship and the benefits and costs of apprenticeship. And some audience members are curious if you could say more about specific metrics or data behind why you would want to make apprenticeship inclusive of all different kinds of people, beyond just doing the right thing. So if you were actually selling apprenticeship and had to make a more concrete case, what would you tell employers?
So I'll start on my side, then I hand it both to Heather and Girish. So number one definitely goes back to just overall the diversity numbers, and knowing the fact that here in Austin specifically, we don't have enough people training and developing inside the tech space. So that's just number one. So we don't have enough individuals that are graduating from these areas throughout the different institutions and universities that we have. Okay, what are we going to do to really create a new pipeline of talent, right? That's where you, employer, come in to really change and reshape the industry, so you could have reliable talent, reliable pipeline coming through on your end. So that's the first thing that I say, is just show them what is the overall challenge that is impacting not just them, but really impacting the state of Texas and where they fit in long term. The second thing that I would say is goes back to showing how much more market share they could generate by having diverse teams. So we've pulled data points from, once again, the Austin Workforce Report. There's also LinkedIn Job Readiness Report that they push out, I want to say quarterly as well, that really goes into what are some of the benefits around hiring diverse talent, especially in given areas within inside the tech space. So it really depends on which aspect of the tech industry that company works with, whether it's Oracle, IBM, Amazon. We have a lot of large tech companies here. They have different focuses. Some more so around software engineering, some are more so around sales, some are more so around cybersecurity. So depending on which fits in for them, that's where we'll dive deeper into. But overall, it's really about showing them the benefit, how it pertains to them on their side.
You're muted, Girish.
Unmute. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Well, I think one of the things that we probably ought to stress when we talk about apprenticeships is that we're talking about competencies, and this is what the apprentices actually are acquiring, and so we're starting to see a big sea change in my way of thinking. On the academic side, many colleges and universities are really thinking about how to offer their degree programs and so on, mostly as a technical education program where the students are actually learning skills that are actually employable, make them more employable. And so for us, by doing that with employers, and as well as by predominantly making the focus on the historically Black colleges and universities, we think that we can bring together the minority community, give them the competencies. And again, these would be the competencies for the hardest to fill jobs in cybersecurity and IT. And that's what we're focusing on. We're asking the employers, what are the jobs that you're finding the hardest to fill in? And what are the competencies you require? And then we base the program based on that. And here again, we not only focus on the competencies, we also make sure that it's measurable. And when competencies are attained, that the apprentices are recognized for that, and they get even a bigger pay, for instance. So those are some strategies that we could have, but ultimately we ought to be thinking about, from a business perspective, many businesses will do the right thing, but all businesses will do what is right for the top line and the bottom line. And so we have to make sure that it makes business sense to do apprenticeships. It makes business sense to do apprenticeship with a diverse community of apprentices.
Great. We've also gotten a lot of questions about the nuts and bolts of apprenticeship. There are a lot of employers on the line and people that work closely with apprenticeship. So we have a few of those. I want to start by clarifying with you, Girish. You mentioned competencies. Has your program been a competency-based program where apprentices advance by mastering competencies, or is it a standard time-based program?
Yeah, no, it is a competency-based one. And I mean, let me just clarify, we're designing it right now. So we'll be launching it in probably the fall of 2021 for sure. Okay, so what we have is we have identified the competencies, and for this, here's again something that I think was unique in terms of how we approached it. The National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, the NICE, they have a workforce framework which actually codifies all the different occupations that are in cybersecurity, for instance, and as well as the knowledge, the skills, abilities, what you would call the competencies that are needed to be able to do that job. So we're now mapping the curriculum for one of the HBCUs as to what they're offering by way of actual courses in their computer science and cybersecurity degree programs. And how does that map out to what the framework calls out for in terms of the competencies that should be there? And so this way, I think we have a common terminology that we could use to talk to between employers and the colleges, and as well as the fact that we will have some credibility in terms of the people that will be going through these academic programs, but also getting the technical education, that they would in fact be getting the competencies that are coming from a standard like the NICE framework. I don't know if that all answers your question, Dan, but that's currently where we are in our program.
Yeah, that's great. And so it's nice to hear that the competencies build that bridge between the employer and the college. The other advantage that you hear about competency-based programs is that they're more flexible than a traditional time-based program. And I'm curious if others on the panel think that the flexibility of a competency model works particularly well for tech apprenticeships, or your thoughts on competency versus other models for apprenticeships.
I know for our program, we're using a hybrid approach. Since we are a cybersecurity base, we are relying, as Garish stated, on the NICE framework. So therefore, you have to hit certain topics in order to meet those competencies. But also, since in IT, we're trying to build up those individuals for those intermediate and also have them be able to qualify for some higher level positions in cyber. So therefore, they need to have some time in the game. So that 2,000 hour requirement that we have in place, that is a year. One of our programs is for roughly approximately about 2,000 hours. And the other advanced program for like security analysts and assessors, they are required to participate in the program for 4,000 hours. But that's 4,000 hours of work with an employer. So at the end of the program, you know, if you stay with, hopefully you get a chance to stay with the employer. But if you decide to move on, that amount of time will allow you to qualify for some of the higher level positions. So that's why we're using a hybrid approach, especially since we're not a university. We have to make sure that our apprentices actually have something of substance because we're not a university. So that's why we're aligning our training with competencies of various like CompTIA and those types of symposiums.
Great. And Heather, did you have any thoughts on competency models or some of the flexibility of a traditional time-based model?
Yeah, we have a competency model as well. And the truth is people learn at different rates and people gain skills at different rates. And so we wanted to allow for people who put in extra work to actually be able to get through their competencies faster than folks who are maybe not picking it up as quickly. So I think it's important to have a competency-based model. But then there is some time component. It actually recently changed just in the past 6 months or so. So there is some time component to it as well, but we really do focus on the competencies to make sure that people have the skills they need before they're finished.
Great. Sierra, there was a question for you about what IT programs or classes were available at your high school or surrounding high schools. And if I heard you correctly, you started your apprenticeship after college as well, right? So I think
Yes.
maybe I'm curious about IT programs and classes at college as well that you had the opportunity for.
So IT programs in high school, the only computer class that I remember is keyboarding. Not trying to be funny, but we didn't have the resources like I spoke about earlier. Keyboarding was it. College, I studied biology, so I really wasn't focused on computer classes. We did have one computer class, like it's like a set of core classes that you need in order for you to even get into your classes that you want for your degree. So I think it was just one computer class that just shows you the basics of like Microsoft Office, the basics of Excel, how to do a PowerPoint, just the basic knowledge. But then again, I was not even focused on computers. I studied biology. And then when I got out of school, I didn't really know what I was going to do. The pandemic was going on. So it's like, okay, what do I do? I'm already in STEM, even though I'm in the science sector of STEM. And I was just applying for jobs. I didn't have any guidance. So I was applying for jobs. I was applying at hospitals. I was applying for anything that had to do with STEM. I applied to be a math teacher. I applied at hospitals. I applied for apprenticeship program. So I just threw myself out there because I knew that I graduated and I needed a job and I needed some money, honestly. And that was it. So high school keyboarding, college didn't really take any computer classes, just one, just so I can get into my degree program. And then after graduation, that's when I just threw myself out there and just start just doing applications because pandemic was going on and I needed a job and I needed some money. And I wanted to say, hey, Mom, I got a job after I graduated.
Sierra, this is Nicole. I have a question. How
Sure.
are you adapting to the career change or the curriculum change as it relates from biology to cybersecurity? Are you experiencing any challenges as it relates to like the topics or the various components at work? What has been your transition like going to cyber from biology?
It was a bumpy transition in a way because I was so focused on science, but just the type of person I am, I have an open mind. I like to learn. I like to learn new things, so I just chose just to throw myself into this and just to learn and see what else is out there other than science, so just learning about all of the security breaches at these large companies and how much money hackers are stealing every year. My friend actually, and then I just start seeing stuff going on in my personal life. Then my friend told me like, hey, I went into my bank account and they took $700. And I'm like, girl, you got hacked, so, so just like things going on around the world, or around, people around me. And just the type of person I am with just learning, learning new things, reading, reading articles and just seeing what's going on, current events in cybersecurity, right? And it just came to me like I really feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. There's not much representation here anyway. This is where I'm supposed to be. And I feel like I can make a difference some kind of way. I'm not sure how yet, but some kind of way in this industry as a young Black woman from the inner city, learning cybersecurity. And I don't have any experience in cybersecurity, let alone computers at all. So I just came into it with an open mind.
Right, so we have 1 minute left, and I have a question that I think can be answered quickly that I'll end on. How do you sell this field to people who are totally capable but haven't been exposed to the field and might have a fear of entering the field?
I think one thing.
Hi, Dan. Whoops. Go ahead.
All right. software is that it is collaborative, it is teamwork. You're not just sitting in a room programming by yourself, that it's creative and there's a lot of people involved in the process. And so I think it's gotten bad PR over the years, but I think we need to start framing it for what it is, that it's kind of fun and interesting and you're in teams and it's collaborative and creative. So it could appeal to more people.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan, this is curious. The one thing I'll quickly add is that we can do an aptitude test of people that want to commit to this to see if they do have an aptitude for cybersecurity or software development, IT jobs. And that I think would be a way of making sure that people are getting into jobs for which they have aptitudes and they're going to be successful in that. And so that's one approach that we found works well in making sure that people that go through the apprentice programs are in fact successfully completing it.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I thought this was a really wonderful conversation and for all the great questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.